Well, welcome everyone to the 2026 VMA Election Forum. Mike Zielinski and I, Elizabeth Goldberg, are both on the election committee and will be the moderators for tonight's forum. The candidates are all here on the Zoom. Welcome to Arthur Alexander, Jeff Blander, Matt Cantor, Mark Schammel, and John Zachary. Thank you. The election committee has received some questions from residents for the candidates. Thanks to all the residents who submitted questions. Residents can also propose questions during this forum by using the chat function on the Zoom screen. Naomi Nairman, also on the election committee, will be monitoring the chat. We'll cover as many questions as we can. The forum will be conducted according to procedures in the VMA election regulations. We'll begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate and then go to questions. All candidates will be allowed equal time to respond to each question, and each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for a closing statement. If anyone would like a question repeated, please let the moderators know. We rotate the sequence to call on the candidates to speak. The order of the opening and closing statements and the responses to the questions was randomly generated by ChatGPT. This forum is being recorded and will be available to view and listen to on the election committee page of the village website. So let's get started with the candidates' opening statements. The order of the presentations will be Jeff Blander, John Zachary, Arthur Alexander, Mark Schammel, and Matt Cantor. Mr. Blander, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement, and you may begin now.
Excellent. And I guess I should feel extra good about ChatGPT has selected me to go first. First, I just want to thank you all, members of the committee, fellow candidates, our residents, and for showing up because I know it is an absolutely extraordinary day out there with the weather. I want to thank you all, and it's a real privilege to be here with you all tonight. Our family has been here for over a decade. We love living here. It is the neighbors, the community, the friendships that makes it so special. I've also had this great privilege and honor of serving on the council now. This will be my 4th term that I am running for. Most recently, the last several years as treasurer, and I'm proud of those accomplishments, including the fiscal responsibility for us to be able to actually fund at this time the largest infrastructure project in our history, the Brookville Sidewalk, and also that we have many other things that we'll talk about later on the road ahead. Making that a transparent budget process for residents to contribute to. But I also believe there's an awful lot for us to focus on for the future. We know the stormwater management, we know safety, and really looking forward to discussing those. But it's the values. While experience matters, I believe integrity, public trust, and listening to residents are what are so important. I'm running because I really, truly want to continue serving this community. I believe I still bring strong value. I find real joy and I love doing this work and continuing to build lifelong friendships here. And with that, I turn it back over to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Zachary, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. And I will echo Jeff, thanks to the committee for all of the work y'all have put in to make this such a smooth process and so well run. I have lived in Martin's Additions for just about 2 years now. Moved with my family a couple of years ago from Tenleytown. I originally grew up the other side of Bethesda, over in a neighborhood called Battery Park. When we went about looking for houses, my wife and I kind of stumbled upon Martin's Additions. Despite having grown up here, I had never spent any time over here. And I put this in my candidate statement. We feel like we won the lottery. This is such an incredible community. We have been so appreciative. We're over on Dead End Delafield. Uh, we have two kids. They are 3.5, 1.5. Just the ability to have other families around and have people that genuinely care about one another is so important to us. And so for me, I'm somebody who deeply believe in public service. I was an educator, worked in schools for a long time. I work now trying to improve the efficacy of civil service broadly in the United States. And to me, it's an opportunity to serve and give back to this incredible community that we have found here. Um, what is most important to me is really thinking about the long term. We just moved here, but I am 36 and I hope I am here another 50 years. And I want to make sure that this is a community that is built to extend moving forward and really be in that space. And so that's what I'm most interested in, trying to really think about long term. How do we be proactive and make this community strong? And then as a person, I'm somebody who really deeply believes in civil servants that are effective and efficient, that are responsive to the community and really hear from them and are held accountable. With that, I'll see you back.
Thank you. So, Mr. Alexander,
Well,
you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes, thanks. About 20 years ago, I was walking through the village with my wife after coming back from a trip to Russia, where I had been walking through a park there and was noting the overgrowth. The trees were in bad shape, the playground equipment was broken. Walking around here, I noted somebody's paying attention. Things look good. Things are in repair. We're not tripping over the sidewalk. The trees are terrific. And a few days after that, a neighbor nominated me for the council. At that point, I didn't even know what a Martin's Addition was. But I decided based on that experience, it's time to do my part to provide oversight, to take care, to keep track of what's going on, and make sure the the trees look good, the community looks good. That was my introduction, and now some years later, what I find is that it's been fulfilling, it's rewarding. I walk around the streets, and I think it even may look better than it did then. But we still continue to need the oversight. I think now I have the experience of how things work. Finally, I learned something. Know the relationship between the village, the county, the state. I know the things that we can do, that we're authorized to do, that we're not authorized to do, and some of the relationships with the other administrative levels. So, based on that experience, based on my analytical capabilities, based my ability to focus on what has to be done and balance things off, I'm seeking re-election today.
Thank you. Mr. Schammel, 2 minutes. Muted.
Mark, you're muted.
Hit it 3 times. Sorry about. Thank you, Arthur. Well, thank you. I'll tell you, I wish I could say like John, I was going to be here 50 years, but I don't think I have 50 years left of tread on the tire. My family and I, we moved out with our two small children, are 11 and 9, and we were picking where to move out of DC after about 25 years in DC. And we had friends in Martin's Addition. We have a number of friends right around this neighborhood, and we were very particular about this as a place we've chosen. I've lived really all around the country, and this is a pretty special place. I will say, both Jeff and Arthur, I've had some great experiences so far with you on the council, and that was what got me interested in serving. I agree with Jeff and Arthur and John that this is about service. I mean, just look at the turnout we have for a volunteer part-time position. This is awesome. So I'd like to help with the community. This is our forever place. We're building our dream home here. We moved here about 2 years ago, and we're doing some renovations, and we're going to stay. Very excited about being a part of this community. Already served on a couple of committees in my first 2 years, and was asked. And frankly, I'll give credit to Michael. We can't see him, but it was Breakfast with Michael that really convinced me that this was a place to be a part of and to do what I can to sort of move the ball down the field. I won't raise any issues with what's been done so far because you guys did a really great job. So to the extent that I can help, I'd love to be one of the council members. And if not, I think the other candidates are great, and we're going to be in great shape going forward. And even if not elected, I think we should all continue this level of involvement going forward after the election. So thank you, and thanks for having me tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Mr. Cantor, 2 minutes.
Okay, you can hear me. Sorry about that.
Yep.
No, I would say good evening, everyone, and it's really a pleasure to be here. And I want to love to give credit to Jeff. Let me tell you that sidewalk project, my wife is so excited about that, given the walks with our young kids who are 3.5 and a 1-year-old, and our dogs. And I will say that those past successes are certainly something to pound your chest on. Many of you may know me, some of you do, some of you don't. I would bet you that some of you know my oldest son, Jack, who we already call in our house. He's a mayor, right? We call him the mayor because whether it's around the house or the neighborhood, ultimately, he knows more people than we do in this neighborhood. He loves the village. He uses our streets and our spaces like Shepherd Park. And like all the kids, he represents really like why we're here tonight. Um, he instills what I think is one of my most, important priority items, which is safety, which I think is special being part of this community. How we manage our streets, traffic, pedestrians, children, you name it. I would say professionally, I've spent, my entire career in real estate, 13 years in strategy management consulting at EY, and then most lately, I was at the largest bank in the U.S., JP Morgan, top 5 globally, with a lot of accolades under our belts that I'm sure you guys all know. And nonetheless, one of the things that we like to look at, and that I look at, is local communities. It's how it drives business, how it drives prosperity, whether that's smart, forward-thinking leadership, it's financial discipline, it's operations, it's thoughtful capital planning, and it's strong community engagement. And what I would say, right, is lastly, the partnership between residents and people of the community needs to be politics and not drama. And I think that I want to thank everyone who's been engaged and has some sort of questions that they're providing, not only to me, to everyone else here who joins tonight, but who can actually kind of give a first world personal opinion on how exactly they are approaching their investment in the community. And I think lastly is really once you do that and we can actually spend the time, energy, and effort and dollars on this community of Martin's Addition, is not only intangible, but it's tangible in terms of dollars and values on people's houses.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move on to the questions. And the order of candidate responses for the first question will be Matt Cantor, followed by Arthur Alexander, John Zachary, Jeff Blander, and Mark Schammel. So the first question.
How much time do we have? I apologize for interrupting. Per question. Is there a time limit?
Yes, there is. 2 minutes.
Okay, very good.
Bell, did you tell them?
Yeah, and there is a timer in the corner of the screen that will tell you when the 2 minutes is up. It'll beep. Okay, up in the upper
I haven't
right
seen any timer the whole time, but okay, no problem.
It should be.
It's
Okay.
upper right corner on mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
not on mine, but all good. Keep going.
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first question is, council members have many responsibilities, including public safety and sound financial management. What do you personally see as the most important duty for a council member? Mr. Cantor, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And as I just said in my statement, without knowing the question that comes up, I think safety for me is number one. 30% of the village residents actually have, 30% of village residents, when you look at the latest survey, are actually under the age of 5 years old. There have been roughly, call it 10 to 20% of the houses in the neighborhood that have actually traded hands in the last 5 years, year over year. What does that tell me? That tells me that there's a changing demographic in the neighborhood. Nonetheless, while there are people that have been here for, 3 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 50 years, it's all amazing. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is safety, because especially these days where we're seeing the headlines. Budget, financials, and infrastructure and so forth are something that I think are obvious. You'll continue to hear me say it throughout the evening, and I go by common sense. I'm a big person when it comes to common sense, whether it's politics, whether it's budgets and financials, and I think we need to do what's best for the community. And at the end of the day, when there's an investment that is made with our, the people's tax dollars, we need to make sure that it is being spent in a fashion, right, that actually not only creates value to the neighborhood, but that creates value in the sense that there's nothing detrimental that is happening that would ever question someone who wants to potentially buy a house, not only for the value of the homes, but for the value of our family and the integrity of our neighborhood. So that way everyone goes to sleep at night knowing the next morning when they go on a walk with their dog and two little kids, everyone's safe and sound. And that's the blessing that we currently live with, and we need to continue to keep it that way.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alexander, you have 2 minutes.
Right. Okay. I'd say my first priority is oversight. We're not out there at the council picking up the trash. We're not trimming the trees. We have a manager who manages contractors who do that. I think our role is one of oversight to see that those things are done appropriately, on time, on budget, and it depends on the council members to make sure that all those things are happening properly. Not that they aren't or won't, but without people looking, they might not. The second item I would say is coming up with new ideas. Oversight of what is already happening is fine, but we times change, budgets change, needs change, and times move on. So new policies are very important. I've been associated with a number of them. One that I'll probably come back to time and again is planting trees on private properties. Since this was proposed by Mike Zielinski, a colleague of mine on the tree committee some years ago, this was one of our major proposals that was adopted by the council. In fact, it was the only idea that was adopted. But since then, we have planted more than 200 trees. It has an impact on the community, on the weather, on water flows, on the beauty of the community. That was just one new venture that we started. And third item is just analysis, looking at the proposals, trying to figure out of the various things that have been put forward, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what are the priorities, how do we evaluate it, throw out the good stuff, keep the throw out the bad stuff, keep the good stuff. So they're my priorities.
Thank you, Arthur. Mr. Zachary, you have 2 minutes on this question.
So I maybe I heard the question differently, but I heard sort of there that the question was really around this idea of like what is the most important role for a council member, and to me the answer there is to be an empathetic listener and to be a communicator and a conduit between the folks that elected you to this space. Because I don't disagree with things that Matt and Arthur have shared, right? I think safety is important. I think being oversight is important. I think that analysis piece is important. But I think the most important thing is to be a representative of the folks that are in this community. So actually taking the time to listen, to understand, to really hear what the needs are and adjust priorities accordingly, depending on what is the community actually desperate for, longing for, and that as a thing. So to me, it is very simple. It is really that piece of just empathetic listening and really taking time to understand, take all of that in, and then build the best policies moving forward that are going to work to meet the needs of the community.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Blander, 2 minutes.
Wonderful. And what an advantage to come after the candidates. Now I can pick and just say they were all awesome and I agree with them. But I want to just say that first, Matt, I appreciate the shout out, but the walkability and the Brookville sidewalk, that was a over a decade process. And I'm grateful to be part of it, but it's been it takes a village and it took a village to do that. So, but I do appreciate the shout out. I would share John's sentiment to start off. And again, during my day job, also, I work at the federal level. And I think public trust is perhaps at the center of all this. And then I can start to think about the other pieces in this hat of treasurer. And Matt, I'm sure you can appreciate from your financial background, risk management, right? So looking at what's the risk around safety, what is the risk around our financials, and then so on and so forth. So I really agree with all that has been said. I do put public trust at the top, and listening to, and the idea is after today's discussion, I always believe folks will probably forget a lot about all the details, but what is it, or how do you make them feel? And do you make folks feel after a council meeting or a forum, do they trust you? Do they trust your stewardship? And I think really that is at the centerpiece of at least my values that I bring to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Shamel.
I love that Jeff used the word stewardship. I think we have incredible stewardship. I've already seen it with Michael. I mean, you spend a little time with Michael, you understand just how focused and dedicated he is on the day-to-day operations of Martin's Addition, which frankly is running very well. I don't think we're unsafe. I think that's why we came here. I don't think we have any issues with trees. That's why we came here. I don't think we need a lot of change in sort of those aspects. What I think we need from a council is something that Matt touched on, which is the integration of the old and the new. We do have a lot of turnover. We have a way things have been done for a long time, and some people that are reluctant to sort of embrace that change. And then we have the new folks that are coming in that very much have the same values, but have different ideas on how to do it. And I think if you're going to be a council member, you have to be able to be flexible and listen. I think those are really the primary things that we're going to be doing. We're not writing laws that are going to change the world. We're not going to make dramatic change. We're not going to change street names, and we're not going to build skyscrapers. What we're going to do is continue to improve on an incredible community. And I think the biggest challenge that we're facing in this community is how to interface the new and the old and make it as strong as it could possibly be. And so I think you have to be available and you have to be committed. And I think anybody that's willing to do that is going to be able to do a great job for this committee and this community.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you all. Now, we're moving to the second question. The order of candidate responses to the second question will be John Zachary, Mark Shamel, Jeff Blander, Arthur Alexander, and Matt Cantor. And the second question is, over the years, our community has sponsored a host of community gatherings, events, and services benefiting residents of all ages. Do you think that we are adequately meeting our community needs? If so, why? Or if not, what new ideas or initiatives would you introduce as a council member? Mr. Zachary?
Before anyone answers this, can I ask a question? At what point in time, if that we disagree or want to bring something up, can we rebut?
Yes, you can. You just need to say that.
At what point in time, though? After someone says something, or when do you want us to chime in?
I'd wait till the five of you have had your say.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. Okay. Thank you.
Just let me know that you'd like to make an additional comment. Okay. Okay, Mr. Zachary.
Thanks. So I think, and this sort of echoes where Mark was in his last statement, like we have a great community. I think we have a lot of great events that take place. I think that like they are very thoughtfully planned to kind of create space for all members of the community to enjoy them. I particularly enjoy some of things like 4th of July, where there's space for kids to come out and do things is great. Really appreciative of that. My only sort of push of like where I'd love to see us do more is actually something that I think we just started doing last week or 2 weeks ago. I'd love to see us do things more regularly. So the food trucks on Thursday nights, I think that's an awesome idea. I would love to see us do things just on a more frequent basis, so there's more opportunity for folks to get to know one another. To that end, like earlier tonight, Matt and I, we have kids that are the exact same age. I've never met Matt before because I live over on Dead End Delafield and I don't make it over to that side of the neighborhood. And he's not that far away from me. So I'd love more opportunities for folks to just see each other more frequently, bring the community together more frequently so that those connections can happen more organically.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Shamel.
So last year, the first committee I served on was the committee. We put together some of the ideas for how to spend some of the money that we have for some programs, like the event down at the movie theater, the ice skating event. I think that is a great way. John, I think you're spot on, and I think it sort of dovetails with what I was saying a minute ago. I don't know that your 1 and 3 year olds are going to be as excited about some of the events as Arthur's 54 and 56-year-old kids. Um, I think that's really the issue here that we have that's keeping us more siloed than I would like, frankly. I mean, I think we shouldn't be meeting each other at variance hearings or council Zooms. We should be meeting each other around the punch bowl or around a playground or something like that. I love the idea of regularity, but I think that is sort of one of the things I was focusing on with the committee last year. And one of the things I would focus on with the council is how to get more people involved and sort of make it cross-generational. We shouldn't only be looking at people that look like us, not every day, not in this community, not to build what we're trying to build and maintain what we're trying to maintain. I think when you have that sort of a variance in a electorate, we've got to do more for that. We've just frankly got to find a way to bring us together. I love the idea of bringing us together in a regular way, but we've got to think a little bit outside the box. I mean, you're going to get I don't think we're going to get a lot of certain age groups that are going to want to go ice hockey, and then it's harder on a school night to get a bunch of people to go to a movie theater. So I think we have the infrastructure to do it, we have the budget to do it, and I think there's more things that we can do to bring this community together in a community way. And I love that idea, and I love that we could try to work on those. And that's what I was doing on that other committee, which is sort of what got me interested more in expanding my role here. So I'll see you the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blander, 2 minutes.
Well, what a fabulous question. Of all the questions I thought that we would get, I didn't realize we'd have one on the fund committee. So this is awesome. And I agree with all the above. I think, first of all, what a privilege it is to be in a community where we actually have budget to be able to sponsor some of our regular events. I mean, while our daughter is now in the tween stage, still the idea of the Halloween event, the 4th of July, also over time, as others have pointed out, I think other sort of age appropriate, getting together at La Ferme, which is down the block, and the movies. I hope Keith and others from the committee are listening. I love the idea of doing things with our neighboring communities, other sections at Chevy Chase, but also Gene Sperling, I know, had put something on the listserv around a cultural event that we went to Strathmore with our family, and it was absolutely fabulous. So I think, the other piece of this is data. I use data in a lot of things, whether it's the budgeting, but we have an annual survey. And I think there's a real opportunity. We don't have to just wait annually, but do some polls and actually survey the community on the different things that they'd like. And again, have these categories of young families versus those who might be looking at for themselves, book clubs. I love nature. So again, I love the question, and I hope the others on the committee are listening, and I'm all for it. Let's do some fun stuff and add to it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alexander, you
Yeah,
have 2 minutes.
thank you. It's funny. Before I was ever elected to the council, I was walking up and down the street asking my neighbors, "What are the things you like and don't like?" And they said, "Whoever goes to those events, the community events, get them off. There's just a waste of money. Get them off the budget." And then I went to my first meeting I attended, and everyone said, "These community events are the things that bring the village together. We love them. Everybody loves them." And I thought, God, we can't have both have parties and not have parties at the same time. So I went with the parties, and I think right now we have a good mix. The one thing I would add to the mix that we're just beginning to do, we've had one or two last year, are block parties. Block parties are events that bring all the neighbors, within up and down the street together. It's not a total community, but you do get to renew your acquaintances with the people on both sides of you and across the street. And you meet the new ones, and you see the person who's walking by every day, and you get a chance to talk. So I would like the idea of block parties. I think there are ways to make them easier to do than we have it right now. So I will be promoting that with the party committee. Short of that, I enjoy them. I go to most of them, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the What's the next one? The 4th of July, I guess, might be coming up. Uh,
Volunteer
Okay.
appreciation, I think, Arthur.
oh, that's right. Good. See you then.
Okay, thank you, Arthur. All right, Mr. Cantor, you have 2 minutes.
Fantastic. Well, the first thing I would say is there's nothing more that I love than when Keith comes out and we're walking down the street with our kids and the dog, and Keith says, "Are you going to be at the 4th of July? Or are you going to be at the Halloween parade?" Because at the end of the day, that is what brings community together. And when I'm not with my son Jack and our nanny is, or my wife is, he comes home asking about it. And that fire truck is something at the 4th of July that my oldest son looks forward to. With that being said, right, I agree wholeheartedly with John in that I think regularity would make the world of a difference. Community being close knit, actually making sure that people of the same, whether it's demographic or whether it's across, right, age discrepancies and so forth, actually have a chance to commingle. Now, with that being, with that on the note, I will say, look, if anyone wants to raise their hand because they want to get to know my kids and they want to babysit, you're all ears. We're hiring. We pay a good rate, I promise. But nonetheless, we only had, 45%, I think it was roughly, according to the last survey of people who actually attended the 4th of July. I think it was roughly 60%, something to that extent, who did a Halloween parade. At the end of the day, that is what brings this community together. And if only 60% of people are showing up, it is what it is. But I think there's an opportunity to agree to get more regular, to bring the community together, because ultimately those bigger events, that's going to do what draws people. When you get to know people and everyone's doing the same thing, you're going to come together. So I think what it comes down to is, yes, the cross-generational, excitement, um, and having, some sort of something that brings people together one-on-one.
Okay, fine, thank you. And was this the question that you wished to make a rebuttal on, or was that just
No,
generic?
it was
Okay.
a general question.
Okay, very good.
I promise I'll let you know I'm not bashful.
Okay, yeah, fine. So the order of the candidates' responses for the third question will be Arthur Alexander, Matt Cantor, Mark Schammel, Jeff Lander, and John Zachary. And the third question is, the Stormwater and Groundwater Task Force has made a concerted effort to assess stormwater problems in the village. How would you address stormwater issues? Mr. Alexander, you have 2 minutes to start off.
Good. Yeah, since I was partially responsible for getting that stormwater committee going and attended all the meetings, I'm kind of very aware of what their findings are, of what the analysis is, of what the contractor's results were, and they turned in recommendations for 6 major areas just in the last meeting last week. We can do some things immediately, and they are proposing this, that is to educate residents about the various things that people can do on their own properties. Rain swales, rain gardens, rain barrels, things you can do at relatively low expense to retain stormwater on your property. The other things are going to require a combination of new ordinances and major investments, and that's going to take longer. Out of the 6 proposals, there are several having to do with building code changes, and there are a range of those. I'm not sure right now what order they should be in, how to rank them, what the trade-offs might be. If we can do better of retaining water on the property, how much more do we need in the building codes? If we do good on the building codes, how much do we have to rebuild the sewers? These are the kinds of trade-off analyses that we're going to have to be doing over the next year or two before we actually do something. We could do something with a sentence in the code I'm not ready to do that yet without knowing what the impacts will be, what the impacts will be on residents, and what the impacts will be on rainwater.
Okay,
So, some things we can do immediately, others are going to take time. Next.
okay, thank you. Mr. Cantor, you have 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
No problem. Thank you. And I would be very curious to know what that sentence in the code is. At the end of the day, right? It comes down to education. Let me say this. Like I said, I've worked in real estate, commercial, I deal with residential, all sorts of clients, communities, and etc. Not every street and not every property have the same issue. We cannot apply a one size fits all solution. So, what we need to do is we need to focus on specific areas where drainage is actually a problem. How do we do that? Well, we've done the survey, we've hired consultants, we've spent the money in the budget. And so, what it comes down to is education. There's modern approaches, right? We can encourage residents to manage runoff on their own properties. It should be thoughtful. You can think about it from an operational perspective, which have been proven to work. And yes, there are ways that we can incentivize people to do so. But at the same time, when people are buying properties, whether you're buying a new house on Taylor at the bottom of a downhill slope, right, or you're buying it at the downside of Turner Lane on the street that I live on, there comes a fact which comes to education. And being an educated homeowner and buyer, unfortunately, isn't doesn't shouldn't really come at the expense of other owners. But what it should do is come at the fact that there's something we can do as a community. And like I said, we can focus on it and we can create policy ideas, incentives, whatever you name it, but it's not a one size fits all issue for the entirety of Martin's Addition, even though we're what, 304 houses. It comes down to the fact that some areas are going to be more exposed than others, and I think those need to be considered on a one-off or a street-by-street basis.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schammel, 2 minutes.
So I don't think I need to spend full 2 minutes, but let me say this. I respectfully, I disagree a little bit with Matt. I do think this is a community issue, right? I think it's part infrastructure and I think it's part personal responsibility. I don't think that you can say that we live in a community as well-to-do and as successful as this community is, and it's my neighbor's problem. I think that sort of goes right back to where we have as a problem and as a community on any issue. I think we're going to have to make some changes. We're going to have to invest in serious infrastructure. Sidewalks are important, but not if they're underwater, right? So we're going to have to do some things on that. I think Arthur made some really good points on this. But I also think to the extent, and I'm not somebody who likes to write a lot of code, and I don't want to do that. But I do think there's going to have to be individual changes on when people are buying houses. I don't know if we're going to mandate certain kind of storm drain situations, things on the property. I'm not ready to say everybody needs a rain barrel, but boy, they sound like a great idea. So I think there's going to have to be a combination of personal ownership responsibility and the community at large, because just like a rising tide lifts all boats, the rising water is going to sink us all. So I really want to see us working together on this in sort of a bigger picture and not putting it just on the people who live on the bottom of the hill, right? It's a Martin's Addition wide problem. It's a Martin's Addition wide solution.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blander, 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. And what an important question. And I want to also give a shout out to the Stormwater Task Force, which we now have made into a committee because of how critical this area and issue is. The work over the last over a year, 2 years of Mark, who's been the chair, and then Yasmina and others. And there's been a report by Bayland and others that have come out. And actually, in the last council meeting, I gave a very detailed report and analysis of the financial blended financing that we can do to get us there. And Matt, I just want to share, I think we're in agreement on this, in that by fixing aging infrastructure, and there are significant challenges and problems, this is not cosmetic. This is life and death. We've actually had, in Village of Martin's Addition, some very, very severe, significant impacts on this. And we have a plan, and it's about $3.5 million. It's in phases, and we talked about this. We have about $1 million in reserves already that we can apply to immediate critical things, including some of this work with the county where we get matching for residents, but also the immediate infrastructure required for those critical things in the report. And the remaining about 2.5 million, which are intermediate and longer term projects, we actually have access as a municipality of very low interest rate loans that our income over the course annually could cover that. So we don't have to draw down our reserves. And this is really, again, a safety issue, aging infrastructure. With young children, we're talking about flooded basements that have electrical and other things that could really become extremely serious. So again, we take it seriously. The council has. I believe we have a great plan, and I really appreciate this question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zachary, you have 2 minutes.
So I would echo a lot of sort of what Jeff and Mark and Arthur have shared, and Matt as well. Like I think it's incredibly important. I go back to where I started of like, I want to think long term. We have seen here and in other places instances of, oh, the 50-year flood that never happens happening every 2 or 3 years. I don't see any reason we should expect that to be like, I think that is only going to increase in pace. So to me, this is a critical infrastructure issue, and it's one in which we really need to be proactive, because if it continues to get worse, if it continues to not be, oh, we're seeing this happen every couple years, but it's happening every year, the danger that Jeff is talking about becomes exponential. It becomes bigger. And frankly, like any cost that we spend on the upfront here pales in comparison to the amount of money that we will have to spend on the back end if we don't address it proactively. So to me, this is something where I think there's been wonderful work done to get us to a place where we understand the issue really well. I think we need to invest and really be forward thinking so that this does not come, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, to bite some future council in the butt with no resources to address it.
Okay, all right.
I have one comment to make.
Okay.
I guess my point is I agree with what everybody's saying, and I genuinely do. But at the end of the day, we can address it as a community without having burdens on others, right? My wife and I, when we bought the house, our basement was unfinished and there were a few mouse droppings around. What that came down to was the fact that we couldn't find anywhere. And you know what the pest control people said? And that was the people next door. They left trash open next to our house and that was attracting mice, right? And so again, you can't necessarily force problems on other people, but what you can do, and I read all of the Stormwater reports for the record, don't get me wrong, it's an issue. There's no questions asked. I'm not debating that. All I'm debating is the fact that there are select areas in Martin's Addition that need much more careful consideration. As I said earlier, real estate is not a stock, right? Every corner is different. And that's why it each needs to be considered in its own unique manner and with its own unique due diligence.
Okay, thank you. The order of the candidate responses for the 4th question will be Mark Schammel, Jeff Blander, John Zachary, Matt Cantor, and Arthur Alexander. And the 4th question is, if you were elected to the VMA Council, would you take any specific actions to prevent loss of green space, including canopy trees in our community due to building construction? And Mr. Schammel, you have 2 minutes to start off.
Well, I think Maryland and Montgomery County and Martin's Addition, having just gone through this and hired our own arborist for the proposal that we have for the work we're doing, there's a lot that's there. I'm always reluctant to say, "Oh, I'm gonna pass a new rule. I'm gonna pass a new ordinance." I think we have a lot of laws right now that are there to enforce. I also think that there's a lot of interest here in this community. We have the benefit and the luxury of being able to focus on trees because we don't have people here who are unhoused. We don't have problems with our schools. We just have all these first world problems. So I think it's an important first world problem. I also think it ties in really significantly to our stormwater problem. right? That may be our solution. So I would love to see us planting more canopy trees, particularly in the community green spaces. And I know that Michael's put a lot of proposals together for what's going in and around the sidewalk. I'm not going to commit to passing any ordinances. I will tell you that it is a priority and it needs to remain a priority. And I think it sort of fits into the infrastructure importance of the greater Martins Addition community. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Blander.
May I ask the committee to just repeat the question once more? That
Surely.
would be great.
Yeah, if you were elected to the VMA Council, would you take any specific actions to prevent loss of green space, including canopy trees, in our community due to building construction?
Sure, thanks. Well, of course, we have right-of-way space, which we are able to work with, and we have a tree manager, and we work very closely and carefully. We are a tree city designation, so I think we're all very proud of that. We certainly know when it comes to the fall, how amazingly gorgeous and beautiful it is, and how fortunate we are to work here. I mean, excuse me, live here and work here. I think one thing I do want to stress is I do believe that property owners have a right to really do the things that they want to do. And we do have things that are in the code. I'm sure Arthur will reference a little bit later, but things that we do try to ensure, whether it's permeable surfaces. Also, we take great care around the idea of protecting trees. I know Paula, our current tree manager, I wouldn't want to cross her if I've done something. But so I think we take a lot of pride in what we have, but we also have to recognize what others have said. We have young families moving in, there may be some addition. So I think that we have to respect property owners, but do our best and maintain the things we have. I haven't seen anything necessarily that requires us on private property, but I think in our common spaces, the idea of working with Chevy Chase Park, but also replacing, we have our manager who, with our arborist, diligently inspects the trees, makes sure they're healthy. So I think we have a very good program, and in fact, a very unique one at that. So I say we keep on going forward while still respecting the rights of private property owners. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zachary.
I don't know that I have anything particularly substantive to add on to what Mark and Jeff shared there. Like I agree wholeheartedly with both of them. I think in our public spaces, anything we can do to expand it is great. I think again, like we live in an environment that is extremely focused on and supportive of making sure that we have healthy trees in this community. And then again, I agree. I think, I don't want to realm into the place of trying to tell people what they can and cannot do on their private property. So I agree with them. That's it.
Okay, Mr. Cantor.
Yeah, I would echo what everyone has said. And at the end of the day, Martin's Addition is very special when it comes to the scenery and the backdrop of trees and landscaping in particular. Friends and family come and visit us in the fall and winter and in the spring, and there are continual comments. I mean, everyone knows that about how pretty our landscaping and our green space is. I agree with everyone, right? I don't think we need to infringe by any means on the rights of private property rights. However, will say in the age of AI, it might be interesting to see, and don't quote me and hold me to it, but how we could catalog and actually think about ways to document some of the trees that have had reported, issues or overhangs and so forth. Because I also know that there have been instances where people have had it, branches fall on cars or, threaten, the sidewalk where kids are walking, right? I mean, we do have a lot of little kids now, especially on my street. I see all the time to Shepherd Park. So I'm not saying by any means do we need to make some drastic changes. I think that there are improvements that are only for the better that could be unique and at the end of the day pioneering for villages and local municipalities where we're actually cataloging, making sure that we're mitigating the risks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alexander, 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, here's where green space and trees and stormwater all come together. I mentioned a one line change to the building code before. It would run something like this. For major developments, non-permeable surface shall be no more than 30% of total property, period. 30% I'm throwing out there. I've looked around the country for what communities do, 25, 30, 35%, depending on the size of the lots and the houses seems to be what's out there. On I don't know if this is going to fly. I don't know if it should fly, but it's an idea that we have to consider. In terms of the trees, our tree committee of 10, 12 years ago made some recommendations to require licensing or approvals to take down trees of a certain kind, of a certain size, above a certain size. We proposed this to the council turned it down. Actually, when we reviewed what other communities had done, a few of our neighbors have something like this on the books. We figured out that it's only saved like two or three trees, maybe four, like in the two or three communities around us that have such regulations. In fact, our arborist at the time described it as a full employment act for arborists. So again, I'm not sure that I want to go and propose something like that again. But it is something that we continue to talk about. Should we require approval to take down trees of a certain size? Should we have limits on the amount of non-permeable space that is allowed in construction and development? I'm not sure about this. These questions are out there. We will be considering them in light of the Stormwater Committee's proposals. I don't know where we're going to end up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add one thing, and that is that, and this is not a rebuttal, it's more of a general comment, and that is that my wife and I had someone who's a very close family friend park outside of our house overnight, and that we had a branch fall from a tree that was on village property and shatter a windshield. This was within the last year during some of the worst summer storms that we had. At the end of the day, it was an act of God, right? And when we reached out to the village and we were said, look, has this tree been looked at? The answer was yes. So if the answer is yes, the answer is yes, right? So I think what it comes down to is if it's private property and the village is doing the diligence, that's fine. However, there's always a way to improve and there's always a way to make sure that everyone feels like they're being taken care of and accountable when there is safety at risk. And my point is, right, is in the age of AI, it's a good time to do that. It can certainly be done, and trees are a big point of contention. Let's just make it happen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. All right, the order of the candidate responses for the fifth question will be Matt Cantor, Mark Schammel, Jeff Blander, John Zachary, and Arthur Alexander. And the fifth question is, this is somewhat related to the previous. So, do you think the VMA building code should be changed to reduce the amount of lot coverage by building and other impermeable surfaces in order to reduce water runoff?
No.
Mr. Cantor, you have
No, the answer is no. It's been changed enough times. One could argue that, I would say this. At the end of the day, if there is a study done that says that we are still in line with what the private market and the residential real estate market is allowing in terms of density and the right to build as a matter of right when it comes to zoning, and it's in line and yet keeps home values at the right number, then I think it's worth keeping it where it is. There's a lot of other measures that can be examined and or implemented, whether that's trees or stormwater, etc. Because at the end of the day, it's going to cost a lot more money to homes to have to all of a sudden have grandfathered non-conforming you know, um, zoning dwelling units and so forth, rather than implementing a stormwater barrel. Now, I just think that it's something that we need to consider. in terms of what's smart and what makes the most sense for our community. But all of a sudden, if you start changing the density of how someone can build lots due to impervious surfaces, you'll have a drastic decrease in home values. Some may say, well, supply and demand, yeah, you won't have actually a decrease in value, you have an increase. Well, that's true, but there's a lot of people that also have bought homes with the intention to expand. So I think it becomes more politics, and at the end of the day, there's other remediating factors that people can consider versus changing the impervious surface, accommodations, zoning, and ordinance laws on how dense someone can build their home.
Okay. All right. Mr. Shamel, you have 2 minutes on this question.
I don't think we need to make the housing regulations any more stringent. I just went through it, and I can tell you, I think that Matt has a point, right? Which is that we're really impeding people's ability to maximize the value of the property they purchase in this neighborhood, and I don't think that's what the council's supposed to be doing. I do
Agreed.
think, and it goes back to some of our earlier questions and answers, which is there are ways that we can institute changes for those new builds, right? We can mandate certain modern amenities that are going to make sure that we're doing something about the stormwater situation without limiting the size of the lot coverage. I mean, one of the things we looked into was if you've got more surface space, as long as you're catching that water, then you can deal with that problem. So you put a slightly larger house on the lot, the water's not running onto the driveway or the grass. It's running onto a roof that's being and caught, to Arthur's point earlier about rain barrels. There's ways to work with that without restricting people's ability. I mean, I don't want to tell somebody who's lived here for 30 years and they've been saving up to build the addition that they want to bring their grandparents in or bring in their brother-in-law or the disabled family member. Say, no, no, you can't build a bigger house here because we've got a stormwater problem. I think that's a sort of a nuclear option for dealing with something that we can do much more efficiently and intelligently. And I think that goes back to our original question about what's important for the council members. It's to be able to listen, to be able to be good stewards of the community and not try to be, playing God with passing a lot of ordinances. I think there's a real problem in government at all levels with the idea that you can sort of legislate your way out of problems, and I don't think that's where we should be starting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blander, 2 minutes. You're muted.
I guess I don't get back that time, so I'll have to shorten. Anyway, thanks for the question. I think this is a very complex one, and I really appreciate the responses so far. I think, it's tricky because we also have a lot of confluence that are coming from the county and the state. For example, there is something up right now in front of the council around ADU development. And we also know while it was defeated, there was the by right to do townhouses and other things. So there are things that are beyond VMA, but then that's what makes VMA special, right? Is it gives our residents protection that is in addition to the county and even perhaps the state, though we do go, and that's why we actually work with our lawyer to constantly protect our residents and what it is that they value in our community. I think another piece of this to consider is enforcement. And I think we have a real significant opportunity right now. Our engineer, we are moving into a different direction. We've had some real challenges of gray areas in the code, as Arthur knows, and others, around these water retention devices that created these really very large devices where we didn't have something that really addressed it. So I don't think it's a clear cut saying, oh, we can't or we shouldn't do more code. I think we don't always know what is coming at us. And so, yes, I agree we have to be vigilant. I think our stormwater committee has come up with some good ideas. I think enforcement and I think consistency. I believe our residents really appreciate transparency, particularly in variance process. And they want to know that those who are reviewing these things are going to maintain the neighborhood that they bought into. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zachary, your turn. 2 minutes.
Thank you. Again, I think it's an important question. I would echo a lot of what has already been shared. I think, Mark, you put it quite well. Like to me, it would be taking a nuclear option. I don't think that's necessary. I think there are better ways to address the problem and ways that do not, you know, create force on folks here. I'll name like I'm a person who like next couple of years I would like to put an addition on the back of my house. I don't love the idea of needing to then try to figure out all of the varying things, but I would not mind being like, okay, like is there something I can do, whether it's a rain bale or something else to address that? I wouldn't mind that, but I would be frustrated if the answer was I can't build that addition. So similarly, I think, I don't think we need to over legislate here. I think there are other ways to go about it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, I think this question is getting at a central debate within the community, sometimes within the household, within our own selves. And that is the question of whether the goal is to maximize property value or other things, other values that people hold, the aesthetics of a community that has a certain look, a certain value, the trees, the green space. And this is not, I would say not everybody accepts the proposition that maximizing property value is the key goal of most residents. In fact, what we hear quite frequently is they're against that particular value. So it's not clear that that flies. So when we start looking at property code or at building code changes, we are looking at things like impermeable surfaces. That's one of the recommendations coming out of the stormwater. The other is adopting the county's code on controlling stormwater. That essentially the key phrase is that no water should flow from your property to your neighbors. Retain it all on your property, however you want to do it. The other communities are doing that. They are adopting the county's language because the county is not enforcing its language. But there are other things as well, promoting these other means. Now, we are told that the other means, the rain bells, the rain swells, the trees, and so on, will deal with the 1 year storm, but not the 5 year storm. To deal with the 5 year storm and retain stormwater, you have to do other things. So maintaining green space, maintaining trees, putting in other things that will retain stormwater, these are all different elements of trade-offs that we have to consider.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I'll add one more point, and I guess this is one that I would echo everyone said I think is very synonymous. But at the end of the day, right, I think the people that are here have bought a house, and when we're talking about impervious surface, that makes the world of a difference. And so new builds, hypothetically, maybe over a certain threshold, maybe want to have some sort of requirements or mandates in the zoning ordinance. And at the end of the day, it may actually create value, right? If all of a sudden you have a $2.5, $3 million house. My point though is that it needs to be studied and we need to think about the impact. It can't be a blanket broad brushstroke that we're just going to implement regarding impervious surface. It's too draconian in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. That was Matt Cantor and John.
Mark.
Mark Shamel wants to respond. Go ahead, Mark.
I just wanted to say, and I think this sort of Arthur sort of touched on one of the sort of fundamental problems between the old and the new of Martin's Edition, people who've been here for a very long time and people who aren't. I don't think it's necessarily about maximizing the value, but I think there's a significant difference when you say, okay, we're going to change something for everybody that's coming in now after I'm already here. And if that code provision was, okay, when you sell your house, it's going to come with a rider that says anybody that's going to buy it is going to have to make all the changes for impervious surfaces and all that, then I think the people that have been here a long time might be feeling the same pain that the people who are coming in. And what I don't want to do is put up a barrier of entry for the people that want to enter this community and bring new blood into the community as the community turns over. And so I think we really have to think about the impact on everybody when we're going to make some of these changes. Again, I think it's part of the challenge of being on the council and what we need to do.
Mark, you're
Okay.
speaking my language.
Can I respond to that?
Arthur?
Give me a
Yes.
minute.
Speaking my language.
Right. Building code doesn't work that way. Building code deals with new things. So if you're going to tear down a house and build a new one, just for example, if we had an impermeable surface restriction, it would only apply there. It would only apply to a new construction, not wouldn't affect everybody. You wouldn't have to go down, pull out your driveways, your garages, and everything, tomorrow if this were to pass. So one of the things that has been noted as criticism of that is that it happens development by development, building by building, new permit by new permit. And this is going to take a generation, which it would, to have a major impact. So it's not something that would affect everybody overnight. That's it.
Okay, thank you all. At this point, I'm going to turn over the moderation to my colleague,
Okay.
Mike Zielinski.
All right. Thank you.
We're
It's about
doing,
8:37.
yeah.
This is the sixth question, and the order of responses will be Jeff Blander, Mark Schammel, Matt Cantor, Arthur Alexander, and John Zachary. And the question is, how would you respond to proposals by Montgomery County, and I would add the state, to change single-family zoning such as we have here in VMA to multifamily zoning? Mr. Blander, you have 2 minutes.
Sure, and I really appreciate this question. This has been at front and center for the council of late, and so we have actually taken some steps towards this. We know that there have been some proposals that first the county had issued around what had been talked about as affordable housing, but really at the end of the day, it did not. It would not, and it was pretty clear, would not provide that. And actually, it was taken back because we were just talking about code changes. It would have been very draconian in terms of the county would have forced a lot of things on us. And that had been taken back and scaled back. And as Arthur likes to say, I mean, there is higher density that is coming, and there are some refurbishments of that are coming on the major corridors, but VMA escaped that. Then the state, the governor's office, had been looking at townhouses by right and a lot of other things, and that was actually defeated. It didn't even come out of committee, which is, again, that is very unusual for a Democratic governor to have also a Democratic Senate and House within state, and that doesn't even come out of committee. But the reality is that there are things that will continue to come. We call it as a whack-a-mole. And I think that's where we have to be on our guard. And, there are some things, I think a lot of folks within our community support the idea of affordable, accessible housing. We know we have an ADU ordinance that is up because the state and county are kind of forcing our hand. So we do have to address it. So I think that our 60, single family, it is a constant being on top of the issues. But I believe, again, listening to our residents, we have taken action in response to what our residents have liked, and we will continue to do that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schammel.
Again, I don't want to pick apart what you said, Jeff, but I don't think it's whack-a-mole. I think it's coming. And I would go further and say not a lot of people, I think almost everybody supports affordable housing. I don't know anybody that doesn't want everyone to have a home. I've never heard anybody that supports the unhoused. I think the issue here is we're going to have to figure out how to work with what's coming. And I don't think it's realistic to think, and maybe it's probably not this term, and maybe not the next 2 terms, but it is coming. I mean, Chevy Chase Village, the high density for high traffic, they're tearing down single homes and they're going to put up condos close to bus stops, and they're going to start to make this very, very expensive metropolitan area much more affordable, or at least partially affordable. And I think we have to be aware that that's the reality of what's coming, and I think we have to find a way to address it. So I don't know that I necessarily take the idea that we need to block it at every turn, because I don't think it's going to be successful. I think we do have to listen and see what's coming, and I think we have to start preparing for it. And just like we're preparing for the 100-year storm that comes every 5 years, we need to be preparing for the changes that are going to come that are going to allow for more. We don't want to see, wealthy developers building that kind of thing. We want actual affordable housing, and there may be a way to embrace it as it comes forward. I just don't want to say out of the gate that we're against it.
Yeah. May I just respond 15 seconds or less?
I've got 30 seconds.
Yeah,
You can have my 30
Well,
seconds.
no, I just want to say we're in concurrence. When I mention whack-a-mole, what I mean is that this is not over, and that we do need to work with the county and state in terms of what is coming, and just recognize that because something was defeated, we do need to prepare for it, and again, not only protect the residents in terms of the kind of community they want, but realize that these things are coming and that we do need to address them in responsible ways. Thanks.
All right. All right. Mr. Cantor, you have 2 minutes. Sorry.
Mark, you said something fantastic, and that is, let's listen and see what's coming, because I 100% agree. One thing I will note, as I've said prior, and I think everyone understands the background, is it's very important to note that density and affordability are not the same thing.
Right. That's right.
Especially in high cost areas. Let me re-say that. Especially in high cost areas. We have some of the most, if not the most expensive land per square foot or per acre on a residential basis in Montgomery County and arguably the state. So in a neighborhood like ours, where you're adding density to produce, higher end homes, one would say, well, is that truly affordable housing? Well, no, because at the end of the day, is that profit? Not so sure about that. So, I support thoughtful housing solutions and happy to work with the state. I never mentioned this, but I also was in consulting for 13 years, and I worked with state and local municipalities on actually using land banks to create affordable housing solutions. I will say density alone does not create affordability, especially in a neighborhood like ours. And it can make sense. Look, multifamily can make sense in the right places, density, affordability. But you know where it makes the most sense is near transit, near commercial areas. Martin's Addition is small. It's a built out community. And there's a lot of residents, and we need to think about what's reality. So I think there's an opportunity to have a real discussion, but I also want to think about reality and, let's not just create an issue to have an issue, if you get what I'm saying. Economics also are at play here, supply, demand, factors like construction costs. So I think it's possible. You never do know. But at the end of the day, the free market is going to allow for development to occur at its own basis.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree with Matt here. In fact, in addition to saying all the time, higher density is coming, I've been saying it now for more than 10 years. It's of both affordable and unaffordable housing, meaning higher price. The reason I say that is economics. As long as there's a demand out there, and there are areas near transportation, near shopping, near things like the Purple Line, I think we're going to be getting it. Now, I've lived in higher density areas that was lovely. There have been big parks nearby. My son had lived in Germany in a town that was almost all multi-story townhouses, but right at the end of his street was a farm, and right block away was a park that was probably 3 times as large as the park we have behind here in Beach Drive. So it's possible, but you have to work at it. You need the green space, and you have to do it smart. The worst of all worlds is going to be dumb higher density. And we don't want that, and I don't think we're going to get it in Martin's Additions.
All right. Thank you.
Agree.
Mr. Zachary. Sorry.
I would echo sort of a lot of the sentiment that was shared. This is you go last, and I'm like, oh, the good things were like, I in particular, the thing that stands out to me were the 2 things that stand out. One, this is a role for us to be like, we know this is going to come eventually, so we need to be thoughtful about it. We need to be responsive to the folks that we serve. So what is the broad community consensus on what they're looking for, and how do we handle that? And Matt, in particular, I think you hit the nail on the head that like infrastructure to me is the first step before you can have affordable housing and have housing density. You need to have the right infrastructure in place. Martin's Additions does not have the right infrastructure to host that. We're sitting here talking about stormwater runoff. If we moved like these things are they don't mesh well. So I think really thinking about what is our role to play in this? How do we help protect the community we have, while moving forward with the density that is going to come sooner or later?
Thank you. We're now going to move on to 4, which we call short answer questions. We think your answers will be shorter. We're going to actually allow 1 minute to respond, so maybe they will actually be shorter. Let's see. This will be the 7th question. It's a kind of hopefully a short answer one. The response in order will be Arthur Alexander, John Zachary, Jeff Blander, Matt Cantor, and Mark Schammel. The 7th short answer question is, some house prices here are already too high for many families, and every time a builder tears down a small older house to build a McMansion, the village becomes even less affordable. Would you support putting a substantial tear down or demolition fee in the VMA building code to help stop developers from demolishing what little is left of the village's older, more affordable housing stock? Mr. Alexander, you have 1 minute.
Okay. No. I think there are other ways to maintain the character of the village. I don't think we need moratoriums. I don't think we need absolute prohibitions. Among them, go back to an old favorite, is impermeable surfaces, but their side front setbacks, the amount of space that structures can cover, height limits. There are all sorts of ways to restrict the boxiness, the scale, the volume. We don't need anything more draconian than that.
All right. Mr. Zachary, 1 minute.
Echoing Arthur, no, for much of the same reasons. I think there are better ways to go about doing that, and I think that creates more problems than it solves.
Mr. Blander, you have a minute.
Yeah, we may have a unanimous vote here if this is the council, but yeah, we're not about enforcing additional taxes, a burden on private property or new builds. However, I get back to the other point is enforcement of existing what we have. We've seen it's a constant sort of slippery slope of new designs and new proposals. And so I think with this new engineer that we're bringing on board and a review of our enforcement capacity and capabilities, that this will really greatly strengthen our ability to address it. But recognize that, again, it's an evolving process where, like the stormwater devices, our code didn't address it, and we had new things being proposed that were very challenging. So I do think that it is something that we'll have to continue to stay on top of in terms of enforcement. But any new restrictions in terms of what could be put up, I don't think that's the right way to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cantor, about a minute.
No, absolutely not. I think that goes against everything that the free market, the United States of America, Maryland, you name it, anything we stand for. At the end of the day, we have a lot of folks, right? Actually, I think it's about 25 residents who have lived here for more than 20 years. They have grandfathered houses in terms of zoning laws that are out of our control, that are actually not only county but state run. And quite frankly, it's the largest asset that most people actually hold in their net worth. And all of a sudden, once you start implementing the potential for, fees that come to redevelopment or demolition, you might be sitting on a house that maybe has opportunity, whether that's for your kid, your grandkid, or the free, or someone who's a potential buyer. I just think that is something that is it's outlandish, and it doesn't make any sense.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schammel.
Driving prices down.
Okay. Somebody's got something on Mr. Schammel?
Yes.
Sorry.
I actually think there's a significant flaw in the premise of the question, and I think it's one of the problems that we have here. The average American makes about $87,000 a year. The average home in Martin's Addition is $1.8 million. The idea that there's anything that this council is going to do to make any house in Martin's Addition affordable is laughable to me.
Agreed, Mark.
I certainly didn't come up in an area or was raised with that kind of money. I mean, a $1.8 million house there's a minuscule percentage of Americans that can even afford that. So the idea that what we're going to do is we're going to do something to stop people from taking, as Matt says, their largest asset and developing it for their home. Look, if we wanted to make it a little trickier, a little more difficult for people to come in and do spec builds and, have investors come in and buy up houses and flip them and turn them into ghastly castles, fine. But for people that are going to come in and buy a piece of property and design a home for their families to live in, I think the last thing we should be doing is forcing an impediment to people doing that. We're going to keep people out of Martin's Addition.
Agreed 100%, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. The order of candidate responses for question 8, and this will be another 1-minute response, is John Zachary, Arthur Alexander, Matt Cantor, Mark Schammel, and Jeff Belanger. And the 8th question is, would you support funding of police officers for limited but ongoing patrolling of Brookville Road to enforce stop signs, speed limits, and prohibit oversized trucks and unsafe driving? Mr. Zachary, you have 1 minute.
Probably not, but I would want to better understand what the need is. My experience living here is that does not feel like something that is currently requires a dramatic level of intervention. And I am hesitant to make that outlay without having more information about it. So again, probably not, but if I took a look at data and took a look at more information, and I'd be open to having my mind swayed on it.
All right, Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, there's a question of whether we could. It's a state highway. And we have looked into what we could do to regulate, not to regulate, to police the traffic there. And the answer we keep coming up with is not much. If we could, it has been asserted that there is speeding going through traffic signs, particularly during periods when the kids are going to school. I think it would be useful to look into that. But as John said, that I would want to get more data on how much actual speeding and how much actual running of traffic lights, the traffic signs there are before putting in the money. If we could do it, I would be open, given the fact that given the possibility that there is a problem. So, can we do it? Is there a problem?
Right.
Then I would do it if it met both conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cantor. Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Arthur, I understand why you wouldn't do that because I know you're just blowing through the stop signs. I'm just totally kidding. Nonetheless, I agree with what both Arthur and John said, 100%. I would be more so in favor, as I said at the onset of the call, of just a general police officer in terms of safety. Does that mean that we need to look at, stop signs and speed limits and speed cameras and all the above? I'm not so sure it needs to be just traffic enforcement. Now, if all of a sudden we had, a police officer, which I know we've contemplated and had in the past, and et cetera, that's a different story. But I think I think it warrants a lot more due diligence, and I agree with the previous respondents wholeheartedly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schammel.
Everybody else talked a little bit about some of their credentials and their background, and I'll just tell you, I'm actually an expert in the field of police procedures. I have sued cops, I've defended cops all over the country, including even the police officer with the shooting on January 6th. I've been involved in more police cases than there are people on this call. The last thing Martin's Addition needs is more police presence. I mean, that question to me is just on its face ludicrous. We can do a lot with working with the Montgomery County Board, working with the state, if we want to do video, if we want to do, enhanced speed bumps, if we want to do things where some of the neighborhoods around limit entry for non-residents down certain streets at certain times to stop people who are cutting through and trying to cut corners to get back and forth to the city or other places. There's a lot of things we can do to make it safer. I think that's absolutely the idea. But the last thing that's going to make anything safer is more police officers on the streets of Martin's Addition. That's just not where we need to go.
Okay, Mr. Blander, you have 1 minute.
Thanks. Great question. And let me just start off with, I do believe that a police presence or security presence is much better served on other issues. As folks know, we've had some violent assaults at the pharmacy. And so there are some things that we've looked at in terms of working with the folks, the property owners. How do we mitigate that? That has included security and the idea of maybe some additional police presence. In terms of traffic safety for someone who's actually been hit by a car at low speed near the Brookville Market, I think there are things that we need to continue to do to try and enforce. We've talked, and as Arthur has mentioned, it's complex, it's complicated, but is it video presence? Is it different types of signage that do flashing things that may not actually fit our community? But I do believe there are mitigation things that we can take that we should look into because it is still an issue. And that includes old-fashioned beefing up even crossing guards if we need to for the kids during pickup and drop-offs. Thanks.
You know
Thank
what, Jeff? I'll give you credit and say that I think that even just the Brookville sidewalk expansion may slow people down. Now, do I know for a fact? Absolutely not. But nonetheless, I think it's interesting because it's something that, people are paying attention to, not only with construction, but making the roads more thin.
Okay, we have two more short questions, and I would ask you to folks to confine your comments to your time. Now, if you have an actual rebuttal to comment on something that somebody else said, then ask for that, and we'll give you a certain amount of time to do that. The order of questions for number 9 will be Mark Schammel, Matt Cantor, Arthur Alexander, Jeff Blander, and John Zachary. This second to last question is, do you support the village purchasing with its excess funds a house that would serve as additional office space to be accessible to residents who are mobility limited and unable to access the existing second floor office? Mr. Schammel, you have 1 minute.
That sounds like a great idea to me. I think that's a great idea to make anything that we can do to make this our own village government more accessible to our village members. And it's, I mean, we've talked about this sort of ad nauseum in this call, but we have an older community here. We have a lot of folks that have been here for a very long time. And if we could build something that's more welcoming, I'm for it. If we can build something that's got a park in the yard and you can come into a village meeting and put your kids in the park to play while you're inside talking to Michael or whoever with the board on something, I love it. I mean, I think that's a great spend, and anything we can do to get people more involved in the community and more involved in our governance is a great idea. And Matt, you seem to want the extra time. I'll give you my 20 seconds.
No. I know. I don't know if MJ's, if Marty, are you making that comment to me about needing the extra time and I should watch it, but I don't need the extra time. I agree with everything you just said. Well, wholeheartedly, I think everything we can do to make it more accessible is perfect. Let's do it. I think it's money well spent, taxpayer dollars well spent, and then let's go ahead and spend the funds.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, it turns out that about 6, 7 years ago, I made just such a proposal as part of my treasurer's report for the council. And I went into the financials, and as Matt says, it's affordable. Jeff Blander has been bringing up that idea recently. It's an idea sitting there waiting to be done. And one little thought here is that the present building that we're in could be sold off at any moment and torn down and rebuilt for other purposes. We would be out of an office. A fire, it's an older building, a fire, even localized one in back storeroom could render the offices unusable. It's something we ought to be considering fairly actively.
Thank you. Mr. Blander, you have 1 minute.
Great. And Arthur, thanks for laying the stage for that one. So yeah, a few council meetings ago, with the support of our attorney, Ron Bolt, he referred me to Garrett Park and town of Chevy Chase. And we actually looked into this and presented something on gifting authorities, and also had shared about the idea of maybe perhaps looking at other options that wouldn't necessarily mean an outright purchase, because as Mark shared, 1.8 million average, if we're talking about a large piece of land that would be enough for a park, that would wipe out reserves, and it's all opportunity costs around infrastructure for other critical priorities. But we absolutely have the authority. We could do the deals. They are things that are based upon relationships, and I am frankly quite excited about the possibility in the future that we could make such an acquisition, working again with residents who see this as value for them and their legacy. Thanks. For that, I yield.
Thank you. Mr. Zachary, you have 1 minute.
Strong agree with everybody else. Yes, I'd be really interested in this. I like neighborhood I grew up in, Battery Park, over on the other side of Bethesda, has this. I grew up having a place where they had meetings that was just a home in the neighborhood that had been purchased. Residents could use it as an event space for hosting parties. There's a playground in the back. There's a tennis court. It was really nice. I would love to see us have something here. And to go back to where I went with the events thing, it would be a lot easier to host community events if we had a community space like that. So another reason to do it. Would love to see that investment made.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Brought everyone together. This may be the last question that we'll have time for. And the order will be Mr. Blander, Mark Schammel, Arthur Alexander, John Zachary, and Matt Cantor. 10th short question answer, short answer question, hopefully, is, would you support having some type of shuttle service for residents to get to Bethesda a few times a week and back, of course? Mr. Blander, you have 1 minute.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Well, if you're talking about whether or not we would finance something like that, I think, I'm not sure if we're in a position to do that, but I think that it's a great. We have groups like Chevy Chase at Home that we work with very closely. That, again, the idea of what are some of the things that may already be available within the county? Can we coordinate those resources? And whether or not these are folks who may be aging in place or others who, for whatever reason, would not be able to or have their own car, I think that I would want to first research and understand the coordination of what resources are available before we'd start to look at this as a line item that we would want to support, because it's supporting it in perpetuity that could be quite, costly. But I would all for the idea of working, coordinating with existing community resources to make something like that happen for those who need it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Schammel, you have 1 minute.
I love the idea. I think it's a great idea. And I think, maybe we could get a short-term contract to sort of see what we get for ridership. I think the reality is most people here in this community have cars. And I don't think that I haven't seen is certainly not something I've studied, whether or not there's a use of public transportation that would justify it. And I think if it was just a couple times a week, I don't think people would come to rely on it, right? I don't think it's the kind of thing that people are going to do for groceries or important, their doctor's appointments. I think it was a regular run, but again, I don't think people are using the buses and things. Candidly, I think we'd be better spent finding ways to do more to bring the community together. I think the stronger communities where you have young kids that volunteer and help people that are more homebound. I think if we had lists of neighbors that we were checking in on, I'll leave you with something, Michael. I'm not gonna have time. I'm running out of time, but the answer is I don't think it'll work, and I don't think it's probably a good use of our funds.
Okay. Mr. Alexander, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, it's not something I would automatically oppose or nor automatically support. I would like to see what the demand might be. We've had in our annual survey before going into new services, we've asked whether there's a demand for it. Would you subscribe to it if we provided it? Sometimes, people want to, sometimes they don't. If it turned out that there was a demand and a perceived need, and that wasn't being met by commercial or other non-commercial means, and I see nothing wrong with doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Zachary, you have 1 minute.
I think similar response here. I would want to understand what is the cost of this and how many people are going to use it. On the face of it, I kind of agree with Mark. I'm like, it doesn't I gotta guess there are better places we could use our resources. And to go along with Jeff, or are there other things that are already in existence that we can partner with or better take advantage of, and for much lower cost to us provide additional support. So if it's an aging in place thing, is there more we could do there that would help folks and whatever that might be? But if the demand is there, I'm not like absolutely not, but it strikes me that it would be unlikely that there is.
Mr. Cantor, you have the last minute.
I would say if I would echo what everybody said. If the demand is there, I would like to see why and who. Because if that's the case and there's a select subset, right, like we said, aging in place and so forth, I think it's a very interesting thing to consider, and I think we should consider it. With that being said, like Mark said, I think a diligence, a survey, and a really good understanding of is that a true necessity would make the most sense. I'm not sure we would want to necessarily enter into a short-term contract. I think we can figure out who needs it versus who doesn't. But if we did a survey and figured out that there are a select group of people who need it, whether that's with this program or the next, it makes sense to accommodate our residents. At the end of the day, people who live here, some of them use public transport, but it's interesting to see what the group is and how we can facilitate their better quality of living.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're exhausted our list of questions, so we'll move on to closing statements. And the order for closing statements is going to be Mark Schammel, Arthur Alexander, John Zachary, Jeff Blander, and Matt Cantor. Mr. Schammel, you have 2 minutes.
Well, thanks everybody for coming out. I'm gonna leave you with two sort of old tropes. Government's only as good as the people that are in it, and it's only works if everybody's involved. I think we have a pretty decent turnout tonight. I would hope that everybody that's on here is going to go out and talk to their neighbors and get everybody to vote. I think it really matters if we can get a real turnout, 60, 70, 80%. I think that'd be awesome. And then after that, whoever gets elected, look, I think Arthur, Jeff, you guys are all great. I think it's going to be great, whoever you guys choose, because people want to help. I just want to see the rest of everybody that's on here bringing some of their neighbors in and starting to get involved. I think we've got some great ideas. People seem to be willing to sort of throw out anonymous questions, but where are you on the committees? Where are you on the events? What are we doing to make this a better and stronger community and be more inclusive of all the people that are here? So my ask is that it not end tonight and that everybody really focus on what we're going to do to continue to deal with these issues. I mean, we have real issues. We have stormwater issues. We have traffic issues. We have expansion issues. We have questions that we're going to need help with. And I got to tell you, none of the five of us that are running or the people that are on the council are going to be able to answer them all. And we're not going to be able to do it. It's a free volunteer position, part-time. And so we really need community involvement. So thanks for letting me be here. Thanks to the couple of you that asked me to throw my name in the hat. And also, most importantly, I want to say thank you, Michael. You've been very quiet on this, but for those who haven't gotten to know Michael, this is exactly how we build a great community, is having somebody like Michael Silliman. I mean, he just impressed the hell out of me when I met him and every time I've talked to him. So let's all continue to work with him and do what we can to make this a stronger community. Thanks.
And you're here.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, following up on that, many of the issues that we face involve trade-offs. Not only are there the benefits that we're seeking, but the cost, there's the monetary cost, but there are also things like impositions on private property, what we allow homeowners, property owners to do with their properties. Any of these things that we are considering take time, they take patience, they take analysis. The correct answers don't jump out at us. They're not obvious. Sometimes we only learn over time what's workable and what's not workable. So what I'm hoping to bring to the community, to continue to bring to the community, is that kind of analysis, that kind of patience, that kind of involvement over time that allows us to see how the issues develop, how the problems develop, how they evolve. And at the end, sometimes we even get things done. And we mentioned several times the Brookville sidewalks. It has been more than 5 years since we've been looking at it. That came out of recommendations from one of our committees. It was an obvious problem, but working with the state and the county and with private properties has taken time to do it. So that patience, the analysis, the bureaucratic work has finally been accomplished, and we're doing it. That's what it takes to make change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zachary, you have 2 minutes.
Thanks, y'all. I think for me, the sort of why me in this, I'm somebody, my background is in organizational development. I spend a lot of time thinking about systems and thinking about root causes and solving those things. And I want to echo something Mark said, which is that like this, it needs a community in order for there to be a system to work here. This cannot be done through Herculean effort. We need a community involved. And I'm somebody who firmly believes that it is better to have engaged folks who disagree than it is to have apathetic folks. I believe that people don't complain unless they care, and I would much rather have people complaining that care, even if that means they're giving me a hard time, even if it means there's frustration. I want to hear it and I want to move it forward and try to do something about it. So I'd really like to bring sort of those values to the council, and continue to make our neighborhood wonderful, make this village wonderful, make it a place where people want to live, want to be here, want to be in community with one another. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Blander, you have 2 minutes.
Thanks. And first of all, wow, I wish maybe we can go back to the drawing board and expand the number of people on the council, because wouldn't it be great to take everyone? I mean, this was really such an amazing discussion. And I just want to share, really starts with I am very proud to have served on the council, and I'm very proud of our progress and the projects that we have and all of that. But also, I want to start with or add what was shared at the beginning around what is the most important thing. And I believe it's around trust. And I believe that over the years that I've been on the council, that I've been known for someone who collaborates with the community, who listens, who always is putting the community first, and really not putting the cart before if we need to take that time to get further community engagement on specific issues or other things that are before us. We heard the priorities. We also know that we have to be able to, again, in that public trust position, we don't have all the answers, but are we collecting the information? Will we address it? And will we come together? We don't always have to agree. Arthur and I haven't always agreed, but we've agreed more than we've disagreed. And that's the beauty of this. And why am I, seeking this re-election or to serve a fourth term? I love it. It's just like everyone here. I love my neighbors. I love living here and the idea of continued community service. But I still believe that I add value, both the experience, but again, the new ideas of where we could go with whether it's acquiring some additional trust or the idea of this new infrastructure work from the Stormwater Task Force. I think there's an awful lot to do and learn. But with all that said, as I close here, again, folks aren't necessarily going to remember all the details of what I've shared tonight, but I do hope that as you get out there, and I hope to have your vote, you think of someone who has your trust and also is there to listen to you and take your priorities forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cantor, you have the last word.
Well, I will say, Jeff and Arthur, if you guys don't agree, I would love to be in the fly on the wall. But, nonetheless, I would say, wow, I got the last statement. So you've heard me say it a couple times and, joking with my wife and, friends and family, I like to say it, I go, but my whole thing is common sense. Nonetheless, right, I was surprised about some of the issues and budget items that are the norm, and then often people use to compete or to compare ourselves with neighboring villages. Some of the things that we want to consider that haven't been mentioned, such as, and I know they have been studied, are, budget surplus and tax credits, right, when certain conditions are met. Look at Section 5, right? The Village of Martin's Addition, I would say, is an amazing community. It's one that people literally go from DC, as John said, and they want to live in. But I would say we are near perfect. Not quite perfect, but we're just about near. And so I think that there's an opportunity beyond the obvious topics to take ourselves to the next level. I want to make this community a special place for all generations, not only young kids who are drawing chalk on the sidewalks like my son's on our front, stoop, and they scribble around, but older generations that want to age in place and think about other issues. Um, it's a very special place. It really is. I grew up in Montgomery County. I was subject to the public school system in Rockville. I went to Wooten High School. I would say all these candidates are awesome. I didn't have this growing up in terms I would live North Potomac. It was an HOA. Didn't have the level of engagement and special nature of this. So nonetheless, I would say to everyone on the call, you can't go wrong. I think there's way more commonalities and similarities than anyone would say, except if you don't vote for me.
All right, thank you. Thank you, candidates, and thanks to all the residents who participated in the evening and or sent questions in. The forums covered some very important issues for the village and maybe more than we thought we would. Your ballots will arrive by mail in a few days. I think we talked to the contractor who's going to be mailing them out tomorrow. Please follow the instructions and mail your completed ballot back in the official postage paid ballot envelope by May 15th, or you can just come to the sidewalk celebration for on Election Day, May 5th, and drop off your signed sealed ballot envelope in the secure drop box there. If you have any questions about voting, just call the election committee chairperson, Marty Langelin, or email the election committee at vmaelections@martinseditions.org. Good night, and thanks from everyone on the election committee. We look forward to seeing you on the sidewalk celebration, May 5th, 5.
Thank you for
Good
hosting.
night.
Yeah.
This is great.
Thanks for election committee.
Thank you.
Bravo
Yeah.
all. Bravo.